Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us in the lounge. Today, I have a dear friend, Rich Ingram, here with me. He is a fellow heroic public speaker and a fellow Python from our cohort earlier this year. And today, we are here to talk about becoming unbreakable, how resilience is required for leadership. So, our quote to kick us off is nothing in life builds resilience like adversity and failure. And Rich has known that just a little bit in his life. He is an ultramarathon athlete and the first combat wounded soldier to commission as an Army officer. He has served 4 tours between Iraq and Afghanistan, 3 of them one handed, before retiring in 2013 as a captain. And now he's on this journey with me and several others to speak and help motivate others so that they can raise their emotional thresholds. Rich, it's a pleasure to have you here with me in the lounge. How are we doing today? Rich, are you able to hear me? Yes, you should be able to hear me. It looks like we have a technical glitch, which, being Sarah the Pivoter, that is quite normal. Not sure what's happening here, but we'll toggle on his mic settings and see if we can get him ready. We'll be right back. All right. Well, Rich is logging out and logging back in. And this is why I like to do the show live, because in real life, you cannot hit pause, rewind, edit, and rewrite something. And so we have to figure out how we can pivot, how we can move, roll with the punches, and still show up, have a smile on our face, and not get too derailed. Change is a good thing. And so we have lots of technology changes, there's updates that happen. Sometimes things work right before you go live, and then you hit the go live button, and all of a sudden, nothing is working. So, Katie, I see that you're here with us live. Thank you for being here. I see some other Pythons on as well, and looks like Rich is trying to get back online. I'm going to just check the message from him now and see. Hey, Allison, nice to see you. All right, there we go. Okay, how are we going?
All right. This
Yeah,
is not the
yeah.
first time this has happened to me. Like a couple weeks ago, someone was like, "I'll be right back," and then I got ditched, and I had to, just do a reset. So,
You know what we're
um,
doing? We're talking about nothing in life builds resilience like adversity and failure, and we had a tech failure. Look at that. We're just filling up your resilience bank, Rich.
there we
Bye
go.
to
We just did
everybody.
a reset. Help. That's all we needed.
Yeah. And see? Thanks, Katie. Yeah, well done pivoting that experience. Well, I have to be honest, it's not the first time it's happened. It's like for the first year I ran my podcast, it was almost a known thing that there would be some sort of technical glitch. I even had once my internet kick me out, and the other person luckily was well versed in speaking and just held the conversation with herself for like 5 minutes until I came back. So
That's
here we are.
awesome. That's
Welcome,
awesome.
Rich. I gave a really cool intro for you too. You're gonna have to go back and watch it.
I will make sure it's accurate.
Like after I introed you and there was like no reaction, I was like, did I say something wrong, or
I
is he
know.
like pausing for dramatic effect? We learned all about the long beat, right? I was like, maybe he's just doing a really long beat for suspense.
you know, again, this wasn't the first time this happened to me. And so I thought about just looking at your facial expression and just faking it like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you. So,
Well, we're back. We're back.
there we go.
And I'm so excited because you've moved to Austin now, so we're neighbors, and we're gonna have dinner tonight. How cool is that?
I'm so excited and I'm so hungry, and I can't wait to see everybody.
I'm always hungry. I literally have a shirt that says "always hungry."
So God, I need one of those.
We're going to be able to see some of our other Pythons, Katie and Bhakti and Kathy. So we're really excited. We wish more of them were here. But why we're here today is because Rich and I got on. We were like two peas in a pod. We got on really well. And then he told me that he was moving to Austin. So we all got really excited. And he and I both work a lot in the leadership spheres. And so, Rich, I would love to hear more about your story and give, the fast and furious. How did you get here? And what made you decide to be a speaker?
Oh man, so many stories that lead up to that question. But it was a lot of trial and error my entire life, I think.
Mm,
And what it finally took after I got out of the military was listening. Right. I mean, I kept getting these, somebody even said, "When are you writing a book?" Or, like, "Hey," and just little tidbits like, "What do you think about this? What do you think if I did this with my team?" Or whatever. And at the time, I'd started an insurance agency from
mm.
scratch, from 0, and it was very profitable, doing well, but I realized I would rather cut off my right arm and sell insurance. And so I told my wife, I was like, "Dude, I'm taking a plunge. Like I'm gonna sell this thing and I'm rolling with it." But the military, my entire life growing up, I had the energy of a supernova, I feel like, but I just did not have the direction and the goals. Like I had no end state, no
Yeah.
real and so but I found that in the military. And that's where I kind of derived where I started looking at my framework of purpose, mindset, and process, because the only thing that I knew while I was in the military before I lost my arm was the military. Even after I lost my arm, the second time that I came back in as an officer, it was the military. That's what I identified with it, and that was the only thing I knew. And so now, some of the things I told I was like, look, when we talk about purpose, if you need to think about what you think your purpose is, and if you're pulling out of a gas station this evening and get hit by a Mack truck, is your purpose going to be the same while you're sitting in that hospital bed and can't walk? Because if it is, hey, great, man, you're on an awesome journey. But if it's not, you might need to take a look.
Yeah.
And and that was the truth of where I was at after I lost my arm. So I mean, the roadside bomb took my arm in 2005, my first deployment, and I mean, I was just, what am I going to do now? Everything my entire adult life had worked up to that point of finding that purpose, so I thought, and it was taken away. And so, that's how I ended up here, living the life.
Well, I'm glad that you ended up here living the life and living life and showing other people that, what happens to us doesn't define us and that we can find new ways of being. And oftentimes in those pivots, find even greater meaning than what we had before.
Oh my, I often say that it was a blessing in disguise that I lost my arm. Right,
Mm,
I had a fixed mindset. I knew the things that I was good at, and I wouldn't want anyone to see me fail at other things, right? And
right,
I didn't. I was so scared of failure. I would not try new things, or if I did, it was in a vacuum.
right.
And after I lost my arm, and I say this because it is easy. It was easier for me to change my mindset because a traumatic event occurred
Yeah.
and I was reinventing myself. I didn't have a choice. Whereas someone that's wherever in life, they make a decision, hey, I'm going to start doing X, Y, and Z. Well, they can always decide not to do that, right? I mean, we're a victim of our choices, and so for me, I didn't have a choice. There was no choice. Had to reinvent myself, and I came out, better than I was before in my mind. And I learned so much just about, taking failure, turning it into an opportunity, facing critics and feedback and everything. And so it changed me for the better.
And I love that you just said turning failure into opportunity because so many people are afraid of the big scary F word, right? And a lot of it is driven. We have a very hyper independent culture in North America and America especially, and we're expected to do it all and wants to do it all. At least the millennial generation, that's the narrative that, has been fed to us. And so redefining what does success look like and maybe the purpose is not always even in what we do for money, but it's present. And, we are very intentional about the boundaries with our time so that we can make
Right.
those things happen. And so actually last week, one of the topics was, how purpose without discipline is meaningless and vice versa. Because we could have great purpose, but if we don't have discipline, it goes nowhere.
No, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I mean, thinking about your ultra marathons running, right? If you just like showed up and you did no training and you didn't have the discipline or the structure around that, you wouldn't do very well. You'd probably injure yourself and it wouldn't be something you could sustain, right?
Right.
Um, and on the other side, if you don't have a reason or a deeper connection to those marathons, then you're having this structured lifestyle and hating it, which is also not great.
Yeah, no, and then you just have, all the negative mentality going forward, and that's why I think purpose is the true motivator, right? I
Mm.
mean, we talk about, willpower. Willpower is horseshit.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
terrible.
it's just, an executive function in the brain, and I just, that's why for me, purpose is everything. But you're absolutely right. I mean, going back to my younger days, I mean, yeah, I was full of energy. I mean, I could go. I remember being in the military, and we'd stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning drinking. Then we have PT at 5 a.m. and we started doing PT. But I didn't. It took me a while to like figure out. Okay, where do I want to go? Right? Like this is all great. I'm having fun right now, but this has to mold into something.
Mm,
And so um anyways, I was thinking about something on my run this morning because there was someone else out on the trail, and I was comparing myself to them, to their speed, and I realized, like, what am I doing?
mm,
Because their pace, their workout has nothing to do with me. I mean, this could be a tempo day for them. This is not a tempo day for me. This is a zone 2 day for me. And so it takes all the discipline that you have to say, "Hey, let go of your ego. Nobody else's journey, like that's that guy's journey." And we ended up meeting up and running together, and it was amazing, and it just emboldened my passion for the sport just because we just complete strangers, and then
yeah.
we ended up running together. But I was comparing myself to that individual, and then it just kinda had a meta moment of, you know, we are 2 separate people with 2 separate journeys. It doesn't matter what they're doing. This is where I need to be and where I need to go.
Mm.
So
That's yeah,
anyways.
it's a powerful realization because even if in some areas we stop the comparison or the comparison-itis, it can show up in other ways. It finds new disguises. And then we get the opportunity to realize that and make the shift. And I love that you said, like, we're on two different journeys. That's his journey. This is my journey. Because you don't know what he's training for, right? And he doesn't know what you're training for. And you could have two vastly different goals and outcomes that you're working towards, which require different training protocols, rest periods, hydration, nutrition, etc. You also have different life demands on you. And so you cannot possibly expect that you should be the same, and yet we do it all the time. I mean, I know if I'm on the trail and someone's like running up behind me, I start to speed up because I'm like, oh, someone's gonna pass me.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Oh god.
usually I'm like, it's like 5 seconds of speeding up, and then I'm like, nah, I'll just go back to my jog. This is pleasant.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't need to run at that pace. That does not look like my idea of a good time right now.
but you also realize, like, none of that matters. Like,
Oh,
that's the I think that's one of the toughest things, especially in our society. We talk about keeping up with the Joneses or
yeah.
whomever it is right now. And when we start to do that, we start to get away from what our purpose is. And then we start to trick ourselves into what we think our purpose is, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And then it's just like, okay, where am I? You know what I mean? Like, when
Yeah.
you get stuck in the social bubble, and anyways, that's why I think it's so important. It's just like, worry about yourself. you know, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't worry about other people, but, first, eh, figure
Don't let
out your
other people's
journey.
goals color your own or feel like you have to say yes. I actually on Sunday I was in a session for this practice that I'm in, and Christina made this wonder. I wrote it down. She said, "I get to say no to amazing opportunities." And I wrote it down because I have the tendency to get really excited when amazing opportunities come my way, and I will say yes to them. And then later I might go back and be like, "Oh, I overcommitted here." In the past, I would never admit that, and I would just try to do it all, and I'd crumple under the weight, and I'd burn out or hurt myself, whatever it was. And now I'll go back and I'll just be like, "This is sorry, I got really excited. I actually don't have the capacity for this right now." And I'll offer alternatives, or I'll see if maybe like later down the line it might work. But I've become a lot better at catching it if it does start to happen again. Because it's you get excited and you want to do all the things. That's okay, but it's about being able to temper that
Yeah.
and say no, thank you, not right now.
Well, and that's powerful because one, it means you're doing something right. But two, I remember when I first started selling insurance, I mean, I would take anything, like I need to put food on the table. And then it got to a point of where, like, I knew when as soon as somebody called in or one of my teammates or employees was like telling me about this, I was like, you need to cut that loose. You have because when you look at the number, I mean, everything doesn't matter what you're selling, everything's the same, and it's a numbers game. You're gonna put this amount of time in it for how much money? Not worth it. Cut it
Right?
off. As soon as somebody's like, "Oh, I'm starting a new business. I need some insurance." Nope, not worth it.
Yeah.
Cut it off because those never pan out the way that you want them to. Anyway, so um,
But that's
I
good
think
leadership. Good leadership requires being able to make those decisions and those assessments.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely, and I mean, you have to guide your people to do that. But the biggest thing is knowing when to say no. I mean, you have to be you have to look from not just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get some money. Hold on a second, let's take a deeper dive and see what's really happening here.
Yeah.
So, but that was fun.
You also pointed out a great point that a lot often gets overlooked, which is people will look at the dollar value amount that's coming in without considering the time expenditure. And so it
Yeah,
may not be actually profitable or worthwhile in the end. It's kind of like when people avoid buying the thing they really want or eating the thing they really want, but then they buy a bunch of crappy shit instead, or they eat all the junk food, the healthy food instead. Whereas if they just would have had a scoop of ice cream, they would have had less calories, or if they would have just bought the thing
right.
that wouldn't have
Yeah,
broke and needed to be replaced 5 times, right? So it's about really being present to all of the data points and really analyzing, as you said earlier, the macro,
right.
not just focusing on the one point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm huge on diminishing returns. I mean, it's just I don't know, and it happens every day in life. I mean,
Yeah.
even when I'm out on a long run, I find myself I'm like sprinting up this. I'm going to be out there for 5 6 hours, and I'm sprinting up this long climb. What is that? What is that gaining for me? Like, I should not be doing that. Is what I'm saying. And then I started looking at it and said, okay, I'm in the first hour of this run, and I'm going to be dead for the rest of it. And I'm going to ruin this long run. And so anyways, I just kind of take that with everything. If it's not worth it, I'm cutting it loose, and that's it.
And that right there is like literally how you do business as well. And so many people will ask me, "Well, Sarah, what would you like?" I'll use this sports analogy oftentimes because physical movement people can really understand. But then they're like, "Yeah, but how did like what do I do for the office?" And I'm like, "You do the same exact thing. Like you just change the wording to this. It's there is no difference between personal life and business life. It is just life. These are just ways of being, and and doing that, you're being strategic about how much time you have, how much energy you have in your system. How are you going to manage your rest periods? The same thing transfers over to how you run your business or how you run a team. The same thought process applies. It's a system, and from that you can then be the leader that is building in the resilience protocols and helping the team to be resilient for when maybe that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, that's why I'm such an advocate for fitness, right? And not
Mhm.
just fitness of I'm going to run X number of miles every single day when I get off work or every morning before I go to work, but setting an ambitious target. So fitness, again, easy example. Okay, I'm going to sign up for a marathon in October. Now
Right.
I'm going to do some backwards planning and I'm going to figure out what I need to do to get there. And when you look at fitness, especially towards that target, is time consuming. And so for me, like I have a 100 miler in August. I mean, that is a lot of time, and you have to eat well, you have to sleep well, all of your time, everything that you do becomes intentional because okay, well, I have 3 children and I have a family, I have work.
Right.
I don't have time for random banter at the coffee maker in the break room, right?
Mhm.
So even when I go to work, all of these organizational skills that I'm developing when I'm not even at work, they're directly correlative to when I'm at work. Because what I try and do is I'm so efficient with my schedule at work and how I prioritize things and then box categories of everything that I manage that I don't have time for anything else, and I think I end up getting a lot more done by filling my schedule with many things because I know
Yeah.
myself. As soon as I sit around, that's when it's like I start to procrastinate. But um it with having that healthy fitness regime, I mean, I love dominating a good work day, and you're like, you get done with it, and you're like, oh my
Oh,
god, what
so
did just
satisfying.
happen?
Yeah. It's like,
You're in a flow, right? And
or like when you get to inbox 0 and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, those emails have been there for like 3 months, but they're all gone now."
yeah, yeah. Oh god, if they're 3 months, I'm deleting them. Again, diminishing
Yeah.
returns. You didn't respond in the first couple weeks, it's out.
Yeah, I
Um,
only recently started doing that though. Like I would kinda keep it unread and, like, "Oh, I'll get to it later." But then I just did a clean sweep earlier this month, and I was like, "Right, I haven't actioned it. There's resistance here. I'm not going to do it, so let's just delete it. Let's just take it off of my, like, open tabs that's draining my energy." And it was like night and day. I could feel the shift, and
oh my
it's
god.
way more satisfying. So now it's if I'm not doing something, I'm just deleting it, or I'm unsubscribing, or I'm deciding like, "Hey, is this really a valuable task, or is this just like busy work?" Because a lot of people feel productive, but they're just busy. They're just kind of pushing the puzzle piece around on the table, but they're not actually connecting it.
Yeah, and then it's just draining because for me, I look at everything. So this happened the other day, going back to setting, running example and having a race. So I had someone reach out to me about a speaking event, and it's a speech that I haven't really like rehearsed. It's not what I would normally do,
Yeah.
but I would love to do it. So it would be a different speech, and they were like, "Hey, look, here's the date on it. Can you put this on hold? Can we talk about well now? Okay, I have a date, and I'm gonna make this speech, and it's not, but it's because I set that goal date of here's what I need to do, here's when I need to create it, here's how much time I need to rehearse it and perform it and stuff like that. But without them saying, "Hey, we have this coming up in November," I probably would have never happened. And so, but I'll tell you another thing I love doing. I call it a daily roll up, and
Okay.
this like worth its weight in gold. And so it's just I normally print one off every day or every evening the night before, and
Okay.
automatic date on it. And at the very top is whatever I have on the schedule that day, and then all of the different things that either I manage or now all of the different blocks of different things. So whether it's work on writing a book, rehearse speech, marketing, whatever it may be. And so for each of those things, for a task, it's a box. And so that means, okay, I have to get this done. If it's information, it's an asterisk. And
Mm.
and so and then at the beginning of every day, what I do is I have a red pen and I go 1, 2, 3. And number 1 always gets done first, number 2, and then I don't even do there never really is a 4, 5, and 6. It's just when I'm done with 1, 2, 3, I go 1, 2, 3 again. but I
Yeah.
always start with the things that these have to happen. If the same things start, the same task box start ending up more than one day in a row, well, I have a huge dry erase board and I just put it up there and I stop pulling it over. And those just turn into like these are good to haves. And then
Yeah.
if they've been up there for a longer period of time, I just freaking erase it because it's mentally draining if I'm not, executing something. And I tell you what that really works well for. In the military, we have breast pockets. And
Yeah.
I would fold that thing up, put it in my breast pocket. And if anybody's like, in passing, like, hey Rich, can you blah, blah, blah? You know,
Pull
box
that
it,
out.
write it down. It's done for the end of the day. It
Yeah.
is worth its weight in gold for organization, prioritization, and anyways, and it's
You
really
have
a helpful tool.
you have that worksheet? Is that something that you give to clients, or is that something that you have available for the public?
Yes. So I'm actually doing. So I think I have something coming up here in a couple months where I'm doing like a keynote and then 2 workshops after, and that is part of it. Organizational management is part of it. So, and I can share that with you. One thing that I really like about it is you can do it multiple ways, however far
Yeah.
you want to delve into it, but the back of it is goals. And
Yeah.
so, and it's blank. The goals stay blank. I used to do this with subordinates, and what you'll find is they'll want to, keep things printed out. Like so, it's a Word document, and they'll go in and they'll keep their goals printed out. And whenever I see that, I make them
Delete
delete
it.
it
Yeah.
because it's so much different if you have to write it out every day. What are you trying? What is your make a sale? Is today. Well, if that's just always printed out, is never hitting home that's what you're trying to do. And so, anyways, that's another good thing about it is you are literally forced to write out your goals every single day. And if
Yeah.
your decisions that you're making or the work that you're doing isn't going towards those, then shift. Right.
Yeah.
Cut
I love
cut the
that.
cord, start
Pivot.
something else. Yeah, pivot, exactly, and I used to make them have, like, little sticky notes on, like, "Hey, every day write down your daily goal and stick it. Stick it on your computer." So, whatever that may be, but, one of the top producers every day, it was make 1 sale,
Yeah.
and if you can make 1 sale every single day, that adds up, and you're a top producer in the company, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, it's really been beneficial for me to do
I
that.
love that. Yeah, no, there's a different process that takes place when we physically write something versus typing or just reading. And so I've just made a note for myself to write my goals down every day. I have like a weekly thing that I tear off and I write out my stuff and then I kind
Mm.
of look at it for the next week and I'll assess like what do I need to transfer over if anything. And it's gotten cleaner and cleaner over the past couple weeks, which I know is directly correlated to my meditation practice because I brought back in my afternoon meditation and I'm way more calm in my mind. So all of a sudden,
Yeah,
all the things are not appearing there as like must do now urgent items. They're just like, hey, that could be cool, but we'll put it over in a different spot, like you said, on the whiteboard or
right.
somewhere else where you can collect the ideas, but it's not like I have to action it right away. And I think that's the distinction. So many people can't use the basic Eisenhower matrix and determine what's important and what's urgent. And so then everything becomes important and
Oh,
urgent.
yeah. Oh my god. Another thing, and I can't remember where I picked this up, but what I try and do with my tasks for those things that are less important. So let's say that, hey, this is not in a 1, 2, 3, but it can be easily executed.
Yeah.
Is if I just say follow up with Andy, that's not a good task, right? But
Right.
if I say, send email to Andy no later than 10 a.m. at
Right.
andy.gmail.com,
Very specific.
now it's off my head because I know if I just say follow up with Andy, as soon as that task comes available, there's going to be more work that I have to do. And so it's still in my mind. So I'm still going to have to figure out, okay, what am I doing with Andy? Is this a call? Is this an email? What is their email? So I even do that with small stuff because I do have a personal section. So if it's like call Walgreens to check on prescriptions for kids, well, I just
Right.
go ahead and Google Walgreens. Okay, here's the phone number.
Yeah.
And then that
You're
way.
setting yourself up for success later down
Right.
the road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's similar to creating your environment to
Yeah.
mitigate lapse, right? So
And you're reducing decision fatigue because maybe when it comes time to do that task, you're overwhelmed, you're overloaded, you're tired, the days, it's the end of the day and you don't have that capacity anymore. But now if you go call
yep.
Walgreens and the food number's right there, you're like, great, I can just dial that and it's easy rather than like, oh, I have to look it up on Google or ChatGPT, and that's way too hard for me right now. I mean, it can be. Maybe you're really at that limit where even typing something in to then like sift through the results and find the information is too energy draining. And so that's a really great way to get
Yeah.
uber specific, break it down into tiny chunks. I like to use everyone's heard the, how do you eat an elephant analogy, right? One bite at a time. But I always like to say, imagine it's your like most favorite meal in the whole world or your favorite dessert. If you take too big a bite of it, you're going to end up choking and like having an issue. And then you're not going to want to eat that ever again. Why would you do that to yourself?
No,
Take
I wanna
tiny
savor
bites.
that crème brûlée.
Yeah, like, close your eyes, enjoy it, savor it,
Yeah.
like, let it be there instead of just, like, scarfing it down and then not even registering that you had any enjoyment whatsoever. Talk about diminishing returns, this is why so many people overeat, because they're not present, and so they're not actually present to the fact that, like, "Hey, I'm full," or, "Hey, that last bit of brownie was, like, great, but I don't need any more." Right? And so you're just kinda like in zombie mode, and that happens to all of our tasks, not just eating.
Yeah, yeah.
People tune out when they go to the gym, they tune out when they're doing their work, and it's like just get through it is the goal. But if that's your goal, you're missing out on a lot of nuance and a lot of ability to, in the moment, be able to have those pivots you mentioned.
Right. No, yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
tonight we're gonna eat really slowly, we're gonna savor it. I don't know if Katie's still on, but we're all gonna just, like, take our time.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I need to work on that because what ends up happening, I'm horrible. If there's one thing that I need to fix about my regimen, it is eating. And it's because exactly what you said. I'll, okay, I go out for a run, I get back, and it's like, okay, well, I need to start working by X amount of time. All right, let me just throw down a shake real quick, or whatever my post workout stuff is. And then I get to working and I look at my watch, it's like coming up lunchtime. Let's work through that. And then it comes to the end of the day. And so I just order a large Papa John's pizza with some epic stuffed crust, and I eat the entire large pizza. So, because I just burned however many thousand calories, and
Right.
then I haven't eaten all day.
You have that
And it's
luxury.
it's a discipline issue, even though I'm tricking myself into saying, look at all the work that I've done all day. I would
Right.
not been able, but it's a discipline issue. You're being lazy. You could have good, I do fresh and lean meals, which are
Yeah.
amazing. And I
Meal
freeze them.
prep that's done for you, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as soon as I get them in the mail, I get them every week. I pop them in the freezer, and I mean, it's so easy. I mean, if you want to talk about lazy, but again, I'm just trying to set myself up for success.
Yeah.
'Cause, cooking is difficult. You just pop a frozen meal in the microwave for 3, 4 minutes and then eat it. Like, really? You don't have enough time to do that?
Right.
And so I do need to get better at that because, I have poor discipline when it comes, like, when you're in the zone, like, in the flow and you're working, pulling away from it, which
Yeah.
would make me more effective if I did that anyways. But
Yeah, is why the Pomodoro technique is very, well
yep.
known, right? It's like these short bursts of flow state and that we can like focus and do attention. So like 20 minutes of work, 10 minutes of rest, or 25, 5. Some people could do 50 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So it can be different for different people. But what I got one of these things, like an old school alarm clock, but it's got a visual. So I
Yeah,
look at it
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, now there's a visual, so I can look up and see it and be like, "Oh, that's how much time I have left." And it helps me as a pattern interrupt. It's also been really useful for if I need to do a task, like write a section of the speech or edit a speech. Again, if you're too arbitrary in your time blocking, then or like 2 hours to do that, then what are you gonna do for those 2 hours? I'll use that and say, "Okay, I'm just gonna edit for 15 minutes,
Right,
and
right,
then
right, right.
I'm gonna walk away."
That
And it
seems
and it it has been really powerful. I was surprised at how powerful it actually has been.
what is it called again? Pomodoro?
No, no, well, that's the technique, but this is a time timer. I got it on Amazon.
I'm gonna look into that because that seems
Yeah.
really great for creative,
Yes,
cre
creative function. I do it when I write
hey,
my poetry
yeah,
also.
exactly, yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
right, 30
yeah,
minutes. That's it.
yeah,
Just don't think about it. Just get it, pen to paper. So I'm gonna check that out. I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm a visual person, so it really helps me. I also, I talk about breathing a lot. So I have one of these sand glass and it says breathe on it, and it's 3 minutes. So anytime I feel like I'm not breathing so well, I just this over and I just watch the sand and I focus on really deep breathing. And I know like, hey, it's short, but it's going to really help me. And again, it's visual. It's something I'm watching.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
see Allison comments, great idea. I bet there's an app for that. Yes, there are. But I am very big on getting away from apps and the dopamine rush of the phone. So anything
Yeah.
tactile and manual will mean that you have, because also if it's an app, guess what? You're on your phone. And if you're not disciplined about your screen time or your notifications, you're going to get pulled out of it because you're touching your phone. You should actually I put my phone in the other room so that I don't get distracted by apps. And I have my messaging open on my laptop so that if I need to send a message, then I can, or if I need to see something, but I'm not,
Mm.
like, oh, let me just check my Instagram and see if anyone's responded to the thing that I sent like earlier today, or how many people have engaged with my
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Oh, let me just check that. Like, no, there's very intentional
Right,
times to
right,
go
right,
and
right.
do those things. Yeah.
It's it's funny that you say that because I remember I was having an issue with my sales folks on their cell phones, right?
Mm,
And so, I what I did before I approached it was I started looking up every study that I could find, not like on LinkedIn or whatever, but like studies, whether they're I can't remember which one I look at, but like Harvard does a lot of studies, but they start talking about cell phone use in the workplace. And even if you put it in a drawer, if it's anywhere near you,
yeah.
and you just got done with the text message, you're like, "Hey, I'll see you later," or whatever, that someone didn't respond to you, or you made a Facebook or Instagram post that morning and you put it in your drawer, subconsciously, it's there. So you cannot be 100% focused, which, let's
Yeah.
face it, 100%, nobody's ever really focused that much, but
We have, like, attention spans of goldfish now, so
exactly.
yeah,
So I would either make my team put the phones in the back, like in the break room, turned
mm.
off, and they're like, "Well, what if my kid has a problem?" You have a
How did
phone.
we survive until
They're like,
2004
"Yeah, yeah, but
for
if
the
if
iPhone?
there's an active shooter, they're gonna send out an alert." Really? Really? I mean, like, anyways, so I would make it either turn it off, put it in the back, or whatever. And I always said no cell phones in bathrooms because what does everybody do? They go in there and then like they lean against the
I
wall,
go
and
to
it's
the
like,
bathroom for
oh,
20 minutes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're like, oh God, nobody goes to the bathroom that long. But I'm with you. I was about to say I thought about you this morning because I did think about you this morning because I try and take whenever I have anxiety because have PTSD. I found a great method for this, right? And you and I may have discussed it before about meditating and then journaling about it.
Mhm, mhm.
And but for whatever reason, I don't know. I woke up this morning, I was slow going, and I was just having not regular emotions. And so when I got out to the trail this morning, I was like, okay, I have to meditate. And so I use the Calm app. I know
That's alright.
we're in the app. So I meditated and then I journal about it. And the first thing is always like, what am I feeling right now? And the next thing is, why do I think I'm feeling this way? And then the third thing is like, what am I doing about it? Like,
Mhm.
am I feeling, if it has to do with work? Okay, well, are you executing the plan that you initially laid out for yourself? If not, then get back on track. If you are, hey, maybe double down. Maybe tomorrow morning, look at it, reschedule, and then doing some positive affirmations. And I'll tell you, again, it works for me 100% of the time. And I was completely turned around, like, amped up to go start my run. And I thought about you, I was like, "Man," because I never really looked at it as a pivot,
Yeah.
which it completely is. I guess, it's just you're turning because our bodies are telling us these things and these emotions. That's why I hate labeling them as negative, but your body's telling you, like, "Hey, you're feeling a certain way, like,
It's
face it."
unpleasant. I like to reframe pleasant and unpleasant.
Yeah, that's a good way, but you can feel it in your chest, and it's like, "Okay, let me take what this is telling me, and let's do something about it. Like, what is this?" And so that's why I found that journaling technique to really be beneficial, because now I'm in a better place, like, I am on track.
Yeah.
We just know, like, what we discussed, like, our pains and gains are equitable, and they're just part of the journey. This is
Right.
just another piece that I'm feeling on this journey that I'm going on. And so let me see what's going on, and let's turn it into a positive thing. So,
I love that.
um,
I love to hear that you're bringing that practice back in. That's really powerful.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the meditation is always, you know, again, it's one of those small things. Everybody has time for it. We just don't prioritize it. And so I'm really trying to get back into, doing my breathing and stuff too. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Always a good companion to get me back on track.
Well, good. I'm going to recommend this book too for all the type A high achievers that I know are going to watch this episode. Stress Less, Accomplish More by Emily Fletcher. I read this book in 2019. In 2019, I was the type of person that would have been like, meditate. All right, miss, I wear yoga pants and I don't do anything stressful in my day. Maybe it works for you, but I have a high powered job. It's no, I don't have time for that, right? Like I was very fixed mindset in that regard. I thought, whatever. Of course, this title attracted me. I heard her speak on a podcast. I was like, okay, let me get the Audible. Let me see what this is all about. And I listened to it, and she did a wonderful job where the people who have actually worked with her also read their experience in their voice. So it's like really in your brain, you're getting that validation of, hey, this is not just because she says it's working, like it has worked. And if it's worked for this neurosurgeon and this lawyer and like this senator and this actor, okay, maybe it can work for me too. Right. So it's what got me my like pinky toe dipped in the water to try. But it is not what most people think it is. Most people think like meditating is like, oh, you have to empty your mind. No, that's not what it's about because you're a human being. You're going to have thoughts. If you don't have a thought, well, then congratulations, you are now a Buddha. And like, you probably don't need a physical body and you're going to transcend to some other plane of existence, but that's not what's going to happen. So it's more about honing your mind and having like focusing on your breath or focusing on the sensations you're feeling. So, like what you mentioned, like I had this tightness in my chest. What is that about? And, we can tend to intellectualize everything. So it's good to assess, like, hey, why do I think I'm feeling this way? But in the end, it's just important to start correlating like what you're feeling physically to what you're experiencing emotionally and mentally. Because then what's going to happen is the next time you're in a conversation and you start to get that tightness in your chest, you're going to be like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety. Oh, okay. This is interesting. Maybe I need to go take a break and I'll come back to this conversation. Or, you're getting clues. You're just becoming a scientist and curious about your experience. So I tell everyone about this app now. It's called How We Feel. This is, hold on, I'm going to show you the logo so it shows up. This is what it looks like on the App Store. It's a heart that's colored, and then it's going to pop up. How are you feeling? You hit check in. There's 4 circles, 4 colors. So there's pleasant, high energy, low energy, and unpleasant, high energy, low energy. And then you cycle through these emotions and you can pick one. And so there's different shapes for every single one. It gives you a little description. And then based on what you choose, particularly if it's an unpleasant one, it will give you a little video. And the videos are like 1 minute. So it's not going to take a lot of your time, but you get to see over time your patterns, what's the emotion you feel the most. And these are scientifically studied. I think it's Stanford. I always confuse if it's Stanford or Yale, but they have created this app with psychologists, scientists, and engineers. And they're reframing this as, you're just an emotion scientist. You're using the data to help you know how your operating system works and where you're at so that you can make better decisions and choices and so that you understand what's actually happening. Because sometimes we don't even have language for what we're feeling, right? And then that
Exactly. Yeah.
if we don't know what we're feeling, what are we going to do? We're going to go drink more. We're going to go eat more. We're going to go work more. We're going to go find ways to cope. So by giving yourself the processing, and journaling is a great way to do that too. Some people are verbal processors, so you can talk to yourself in a voice note or otter.ai and then like read it back. I remember the first time I did that, it was really enlightening because I was like, oh, wow. Okay.
Really, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that too.
Yeah, writing it out and reading it back or verbally saying it and then, like, coming back to it later and reading the
Yeah.
text, because we process differently when we're speaking versus when we're listening and versus when we're reading.
Right.
And so when we're just in the experience, it's like it's happening and all this stuff is going on. And then you go back later when you're in a different state, a more calm state, and you read it and you're like, "Whoa, my mind was chaotic," or like, "Wow, was it really? It wasn't that bad." Like clearly I was feeling it at the time. And so it just allows you to bring in some more objectivity and to also process. It's very powerful, particularly if you're angry with someone and maybe they're no longer here. So writing out a letter and then seeing how that letter transforms and then, getting a new perspective on the experience.
Yeah.
So it's something I learned in therapy actually when my stepfather had passed away. Um, but a lot of coaches use this technique. It's very well known and it's really powerful because we process differently. Not everybody wants to write, not everybody wants to type. So, you have a myriad of options and you can
Yeah.
do it right before a run. That's what's so great about it.
These things come with me. I'm so old school. I still have the old
Yeah, the
composition
composition
notebooks.
notebooks. I love
But
it.
I mean, you look at it and it has all kinds of stuff in
Have
there.
you ever go back and read them?
Yeah. So sometimes my daily roll ups all the time. I mean, I
Yeah.
had you talk about like I need to get rid of some of that stuff, um, but that's more for information, like when things occurred.
Yeah.
So no, I had not. So I guess that is my answer to when I'm having anxious moments. Do I go back and read it? No.
Mm.
But I will start doing that because you said, or I'll prioritize doing that to work on it. So I think that's a great idea, especially the speech though. That's what
Yeah.
because one, how often do you hear yourself? I think it just comes across
So many
differently. So
people don't like hearing themselves, but it's because when you're speaking, there's vibration happening and you feel that and you hear it differently. So when you listen to yourself on the video, that's how everybody else in the whole world experiences your voice. That is what you sound like.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's, it's like you got to learn to be okay with that and love it. But yeah, it's really powerful. I started doing something. I did the Daily Stoic Challenge last year, one of
Mm,
Ryan Holiday's courses. And so he introduced the concept of the commonplace book. So I have a commonplace leadership and poetry book. So this is my commonplace book. So if I come across a quote, if I read something in a newsletter or an article, and I'm like, I want to remember that. Like what I said before of I get to say no to great
right,
opportunities. I wrote that down in here. And so when I go back and listen, if I need like a boost or if I just need to kind of be reminded of things, I can flick through this and I've got my little tabs and stuff and I'll get it. And I also write my poetry in here. And so that's separate from then this journal, which is where I'm going to do my mental processing on the day or my worries, my fears, affirmations, etc. And so then my practice has been with the like mental emotional journal is I wait until I finish that book. And when I'm halfway through the next journal, I'll go back and I'll start reading the previous one. And it's super insightful because maybe it's a year has gone by
yeah,
or,
yeah.
maybe longer, maybe less, usually around a year. But then, I'm like reading it and I'm like, what was I even thinking? I was upset about that or like, oh, that
It
was
can also be like a training log though, right? Like
yeah.
you're looking at and I hate that it's hard for me not to look at things, it just as
No, you're gonna have
performance,
to.
right? Like you look at everything as performance and here's my baseline
Yeah,
and, and here's where I was and here's where I am.
it's
Um,
perspective.
but yeah, exactly. But again, I guess because I'm going through my head like how I can add this to my schedule now. So now you have now you have my
Yeah,
wheels
and
thinking.
you don't have to do it every day, right? Or some like there's these great journals that are 1 line a day. So like literally you could write 1 sentence and you're done.
Mhm.
And some that have prompts and things. It's all beneficial. Essentially, what you're giving yourself is the gift of looking at your own mind from a new perspective, because again, you're the emotions have simmered down. You go through it, or you read it and you're like, "Oh, I was kind of an asshole in that situation, but I thought I was right." Oh,
Right.
okay. Whatever it is. Man, my journal. I remember rereading my journal from like 2018 to 2019. This was like the years of getting married and then realizing I shouldn't be married and getting divorced, like starting that process. And I could clearly identify like, oh, this is where I started to like lose it because I
Right.
couldn't
Right.
hold
Right.
a straight sentence. I'd jump all around. I was like convincing myself in my writing, like all the justifications, all of those kind of things. So it's really valuable for you to be able to do the assessment and be more objective, and that's why if you have a framework that you can follow of like what you're writing and what you're
Yeah. Yeah.
doing, it's easier for you to. So, like as a coach, it's very subjective, the experience, right? And it's hard to measure some of the growth that's taking
Right.
place. But if you pick like, hey, these are the core things I'm going to focus, like with the emotions app, and you're starting to see the patterns there, you can see a change. You can see, oh, the colors have shifted. I have now 5% more positive experience than
Yeah.
or pleasant experience than previously. So the same thing with your journaling. You could pick certain key areas, certain questions, right? Like, how did I feel today? Or the gratitude practices, bringing those in, and just like little elements of that. And then that allows you to also be able to see progress, even if it's not in the direction you think it is, but you'll see a shift. You can physically see it. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, man, it's so cool because I'll tell you, most of my life has just like I grind through things, right? And I think that's the difference between perseverance and resilience.
Mm,
And to me, perseverance, I remember in my younger days, getting in a fight. It's like, man, I'll take some punches, right? And I'll keep getting back up. That's not resilience. That's just perseverance.
right.
Like
And
I
perseverance at all costs is not always necessary or even um, optimal.
well, in what you're doing. So for me, perseverance. Before I started looking at practical methods of like these that we're talking about, I just charge through it. Hey, man, like shut up.
Just get
So
it done,
what?
right?
Who cares? Get it done.
Yeah. Suck it
Nobody
up,
cares.
buttercup.
Yeah, like suck it up. And while the maybe the outcome's the same, maybe it's not, but it's so much more efficient because now I can learn from the experience. And
Right.
so that to me is the difference in the resilience is I'm coming out better, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just completely shifting what's happening through that experience. So anyways, that's
Yeah.
really
You're getting curious
really
about
love
your
that.
experience.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and that's how we grow, is instead of trying to always dominate or win or be right, it's like, "Oh, I wonder, well, why did that happen? Let me like dig into that a little bit. What was I going through at the time?" And people also underestimate the demands of life, and we feel like we need to be the same all the time. But I mean, just look at nature, right? We have seasons, and the way things grow, the way, we have less sunlight, more sunlight, everything shifts. So in our lives, we'll also have seasons. And it's important to not be like, oh my gosh, I have this new routine and but now you're rigid with it. So if it doesn't happen, you get derailed, right? You have figuring
It's
out the
one of my
non-negotiables.
biggest problems, though.
Is that something I was just about to ask? Is that something you struggle with, or do you have like a daily routine at home and then something when you travel? Walk me
So
through it.
I try and so yeah, I have a daily routine and I try and keep it the same even when I travel. One of the things that and I'll go over what that is, but one of my biggest problems is now, we just moved from New Orleans to Austin. The kids are in completely different schools. My wife and I amicably, or not to air my dirty laundry, but we're better friends now than we were back in New Orleans. But we're
Yes.
amicably divorced, so we're living in different homes. So everything has just been like, oh my gosh. So trying to keep it together. One of the biggest challenges is not getting upset at myself for failing, because the biggest thing for me about regimens and habits is the environment, because I know myself. And so I try and structure everything to mitigate the lapse, mitigate the failure. And so right now I'm trying to get back into my schedule. And one of the, for me, mornings, I need to work on evening routines, but mornings are my jam. First
You
thing,
gotta dump
first,
that.
yeah. I mean, first thing I do in the morning, hit that coffee, get it started, and it's so funny that if, let's say, I'm making a pot of coffee in the middle of the day, which doesn't happen often, but something
Yeah.
triggered this like last week, I automatically want to meditate because
Yeah. You're like
it's like,
Pavlov's dog. That's your
yeah,
routine.
exactly.
That's your
Because
order.
I as soon as I hit that button, I go and I start meditating. And so anyways, as soon as I'm done with that, then I start doing the dishes and I listen to a Blink
Okay.
on the Blink
Like
app.
book summary.
Right. And
Yep.
then go exercise. And so, I all in that before I start, because runs are normally long, but all in that like 30-45 minute period, I've exercised my brain, my emotional state through meditation, done my house chores, like all this stuff. And it's not even 5 o'clock in the morning yet.
Yeah.
And it's just like such a great way to jumpstart it. And then you get out there and dominate the trails, and so I'm right now, what that looks like is it's still happening, but it's happening all over the place.
Yeah.
And so, but at least it's happening. And yes, I'm missing a day here and there, but it's still happening. And now I'm just trying to consolidate into, because that's all boxes, right?
Right.
That need to be unpacked. So that, I think, is the biggest thing, is not killing yourself over the failures, because I mean, it's just
Yeah.
gonna happen. Okay, get it done, dude. Just
Yeah.
get it
And
done.
you know what?
It's
That's
fine.
not even really a failure. It's just a change. And that's okay. Like change is good.
Right,
I'm
right,
really right now like a pivot point, right? It's redefining what change means for people because it is a good thing. And sometimes we don't know that when it's happening because it feels so different and we're like uncomfortable with that newness. And yet, you have still have boxes to unpack. Like you have to set your environment up for success. Of course, you're going to have less time and energy for all the other things. So, what are the non-negotiables, right? Like, what is it?
right.
Okay, I'm going to do at least. Maybe I like to meditate 30 minutes, and that's really optimal. But I'll at least do 5 or I'll at least do 10. Whatever it is. And so, really working to make them achievable and where they're sustainable, I think that's
Right,
the
right.
shift for me.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
persevere and, like, grit myself and, like, go down and hunker down and get it done, but I'm gonna be exhausted and start losing sleep, and then by the end of the week, maybe not be in an optimal state, or I'm going to be resilient and know that I can do a little bit more tomorrow, but today I'm gonna have to cut it short, and that's okay too.
Yeah, and then not letting that derail, is one of the things, and just goes back to, like, keep showing up, you know?
Yes, keep showing up. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, yeah, I get up after the punches. I mean, I always laugh, because it's like I'm not that smart, I think people are always like, "Why'd you go back in the military after you lost your arm?" Dude, I'm just not that smart. I don't know what else I would have done with my life. Go work at Merrill Lynch or something. I mean, who does that? And so, anyways, there is something to be said about just sheer perseverance, but at the same time, I actually had a sergeant major who said it well. He's like, there are three types of rangers. There's smart ranger, or no, he said there are smart rangers and there are dumb rangers. Which one are you going to be? And I never really figured out the flipping bird thing, but it goes to, like, okay, if you don't have to jump in the creek when you're whatever and soak your clothes up to your chest for a 6-hour ordeal, then why do it? take
Right.
the extra 5 minutes to walk around and not be miserable for the next 6 hours. I mean, I think about that all the time. Like in my younger
Yeah.
days, running trails, like I'll just run right through the
Right
mud.
through it.
And then you're like, okay, now I have blisters at 2 hours. It's like, why did
Yeah.
I do that? And but it's similar to what you're saying. Like literally, if you can carve out the time, and the best thing to do is make those triggers to where you do it. That's why I love the morning. I mean, the morning is like nobody is disrupting you. You know, it's just and you can
Yeah.
create that habit. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, it's a great
Slow is
point.
smooth and smooth is fast, right?
That's another military term.
Yeah.
So
Navy
yeah,
SEALs.
funny story about that. So when I was in college, we were in this. It was called Ranger Challenge, and so each semester you would go and compete against other universities. And one of the tasks that you had to do was weapons assembly and weapons disassembly and then reassembly. And one of my buddies, he was just rock, just a huge guy, like 6'3", probably 4% body fat, just solid muscle. And and so you have to run like I can't remember what it is. You run down to your weapon, you have to disassemble it, and then you reassemble it. And he could not get the guards off. And so I look over and I mean, he just looks like a monkey humping a football. He has this M16. He is just, I mean, this huge guy. He breaks the rifle, like trying to
Oh,
get this handguard off. And I'll never forget our mentor looks at his name is Kevin. He's like, or Ahern. He's like, Ahern, slow as smooth as fast. And while he's doing this, he's just like very, just nonchalantly taking handguards
yeah,
off. But Ahern just like, you know, you slow down and actually think that you're processing and you normally come out
right.
on top. Or you can just break shit. I don't know how that worked out for Ahern.
Yeah, it sounds like it did not work out at all.
It did not work out. I think he was a no-go at that station.
Yeah, that's I mean, excellent point because yeah, you can be the bull in the china shop and you could get to the goal, but you're gonna break things in the process and there's collateral damage and it's gonna be painful and it's gonna
It's
cost
not
money.
sustainable. Yeah.
It's
It's
not
not
sustainable whatsoever. I remember I had a session once where the coach was like, Sarah, you've been busting down these doors and that's fantastic. You're like, I'm here and you're breaking through these barriers. She's like, but did you know the door was unlocked? And I was like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
oh,
That's a
right.
good way to put it.
Okay. I mean, you mean I could have saved all that energy and like time spent and everything? Like, cool. I mean, I wanted to do my this is Sparta kick. Didn't you know that?
Right.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and sometimes we often it's about time too and being
yeah,
patient, which I'm not the most patient person, but someone messaged me on somewhere, email or LinkedIn or something, and we're talking about endurance running, ultra marathon. He was like, man, I did this 50K. It's like I couldn't run for like 3 weeks after that. It's like, did you train for it? He was like, well, I mean, I thought I did. So basically, like, my point is anybody can show up and slog through these things, but
right.
what is the point if you can't get back up and do it again the next day?
Absolutely.
And it all has to do with timely preparation. And so, I mean, yes, I want to go out and do a 200 mile. My buddy's doing the Moab 240 in October. I know. I'm pacing him, and I'm like, "Oh god, this is gonna be hard to even pace." So I'm not pacing the whole way. Obviously, he has
Yeah.
multiple paces, um, but it's just being disciplined in your patience and actually like putting in the freaking work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's
Whether
work.
it's athletics or it's in the business and,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. Putting in the work, showing up, and then resting. Like, rest is a core component of being able to grow muscles, of being able to get stronger, of being able to, like, show up and do a good job. The latest sleep research shows that if you're sleeping 6 hours a night for 10 nights in a row, it's like your body has been up for 24 hours.
No
At that
kidding.
point, you might as well come buzzed to work
Right,
and
right, right.
you'll make better decisions, right? Like you're gonna have a slower response time. Like I can notice in myself, for example, if I'm fatigued and I drive, it's like it just takes an extra second for me to register that somebody's put their turn signal on or that they're braking
Right.
or whatever, right? And so, I can feel that happening because I'm not yet to the point where I don't sense it, but it's like, whoa, that was maybe too close for comfort. Or, I can feel the slowness and the sluggishness. And so you need rest, you need sleep. And to your point, like if you have this big thing coming up, whether it's a 50 miler or 240 miler, or you're going IPO, you need to make sure that you work backwards and you put in the systems that can support that so that you can do it again.
Yeah, and I mean, a rest day is literally the same way that a long run is scheduled on the calendar, a rest day is on there,
Right.
and that seems to be the first thing that we forego, or we're like, "Oh, it's a rest day, I'm gonna stay
Yeah.
up till, midnight tonight
Yeah. I'm
watching
just not going to sleep.
whatever." Yeah, 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 and it's just like, man, I will tell you, I love to do some sleeping. My son's just like me. He's like
Oh,
a
man.
college kid. I roll in at
I've been
7, and
taking
he's just
naps like almost every day, and it
so
is
amazing.
phenomenal. It's like the ultimate performance enhancing drug, everybody. You want to take the best drug that's going to help your performance? Go take a nap, sleep longer.
Well,
It's
Winston
amazing.
Churchill was just like famous for his naps, and his staff had trouble keeping up with him because he'd stay up so late, and then
Yeah.
he'd wake up at like whatever 8 a.m. But then he'd take a big nap during the middle of the day because this is what they did out in India,
Yeah.
and a lot of
It's part of our
you lived
natural
over there.
circadian rhythm anyways. There are several cultures that do celebrate that and allow for it. So, we have something to learn in the West about optimal performance and the
Yeah,
natural rhythms of our bodies.
what is it's funny in the Middle East. When we first started out, it's where did the Iraqis go? Where did the Afghans go? They're sleeping, sir. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Why they sleep? So that's what they do,
Yeah.
and anyways, we had some good times over there, but learned a lot from those guys. But yeah, every day. I mean, and especially it's like 100 something degrees outside.
Right? I mean,
Like
we got over 100 something degrees in Texas right now. Like, everybody should be taking a nap.
we should be taking naps. What time is it?
We got 7 more minutes before we gotta roll this up. But I am so excited to get your daily roll up worksheet and start using that. I'm gonna start writing out my goals every day. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
And so, Rich,
Um,
I wanna ask you, what's your superpower? What do you think your superpower is?
um, Man, you know what? You asked me this like a few weeks ago, and I came up with like a solid answer, and now I'm having trouble remember it. But I would say my superpower is perseverance.
Mm.
And again, not to be mistaken by resilience, but half the battle is just getting back up. And I think where the resilience piece comes into that is knowing that the pains are just a part of the journey. And
Yeah,
that's where I think, you know, perseverance leads to resilience. And so for me, look, I've learned some hard lessons in life that most of them are self-inflicted. I'm not gonna
I think
lie,
that's for most people a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah. I
the
mean, and
time.
and and so um I just keep going. And I mean, I hope that everybody else, regardless of what you're feeling in your head or how you're feeling physically, just keep showing up because I guarantee you 90% of your competitors or whomever are not going to do that.
Right.
And so as soon as that's another thing that I say, there's not a clinically sane person in the world that doesn't go through like what I was going through this morning with the anxiety that I was feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
Tony
I have
Robbins
I
is
have
not.
anxiety.
Yeah, it's not. And regardless of what it is, regardless of the unpleasant emotions that are emotions that we're feeling, everybody feels them. So the whatever we can do to ensure that we don't let them take hold of us, and they will lose their power over us. We don't want to let them go, but we don't want them to make the decisions for us.
Right.
And so I think that, for me, just showing up has led to understanding, how to take some of those, what we might call negative experiences and turn them into opportunities.
I love that. Yeah, and that is a skill set we can hone. It's a practice, right? It's, you know, I don't feel like doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Because it's tied to my purpose. I have a why. I don't always feel like going to the gym, but I'm going to because I know that as soon as I get there, I'm going to feel better, right? It's like making those decisions. So that's really cool, and
It,
it's something
you
we can
know,
all learn and get better at.
it is, and I will say, everybody comes out with these like these cliche phrases like 1%
Yeah,
more, go one more, get off the X. Mine is very simple. Can I cuss?
yeah, yeah,
Mine is just fuck it. Like, and
yes,
and and the reason why is just like, God, I don't want to do this, man. Fuck it. Like it doesn't matter what it is. In like, I that is my saying, and I can't go around to a lot of events and everywhere else saying that, but that is literally, if you see me, I'm about to do something, those are probably the 2 words that are going through my head before I freaking jump in and take off the starting line is fuck.
yeah,
And it's because, like, it's so motivating because basically what you're saying is nothing else in this moment matters except this moment right now,
yeah, and
and
that is all that matters this moment right now because that's what's happening,
so let's
not in
do it.
5 minutes and not 5 minutes before. Like right now is the moment that matters.
Yeah, exactly, and so, I mean, and that's exactly what you're saying, we're like, "It's this moment, why
Yeah.
not?"
I love it. Yeah,
And
exactly. So start asking yourself why not instead of why.
yeah, yeah, there you go. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even thought like that, but, like, man, just get out there and get after it.
Yes, I love it. All right. I'm feeling pumped for my afternoon. Like I want to go get some shit done. This is great.
Me too. I wanna
So
go
I
run.
have two more questions before we wrap up. The second question is who's on your personal board of directors? Now, these can be people in your personal life. They can also be fictional characters, avatars. They can be people from the past, people that you haven't met. But these are the people who you kind of run things through the filter of like, like one of mine is one of my mentors, Anthony. So if I say,
Mhm,
okay, well, what would Anthony do? Right. Like I don't always call him and message him to ask, hey, how would you do this? But I'm thinking through the filter of how I think he would approach it.
mhm.
And so I want to know, do you have people like that you regularly kind of turn to or run the filters of to help make your decisions or in your process?
Absolutely. My father being one of them, he's the most stoic man that I've ever met. He growing up, he worked 7 days a week, up before we gone to work before we got up and gone to work when we went to bed. And so he is definitely one of them because I know that I can get a true unbiased opinion on whatever it is, regardless. And on his son, another one, since we're not necessarily talking about live characters, Teddy Roosevelt. I often think about, and I've tried to
Mm,
read as much about him as I can, just because I love him. But a lot of times I put myself in situations like, well, what would this guy do? And then I would say that those two are the two main ones. And then I have a close friend that I often run things by, who's just a very down to earth, successful guy that's managed multiple businesses. And um, so yeah, I think family, friend, and then and this is my Teddy Roosevelt right here. So,
I love it.
anyways, all right. Third question. What you got?
Amazing. All right, third one. How do you best represent humanity? So this is from the lens that there is a alien that has come to Earth and you are the first human being that they meet. So what do they learn about humanity because they've met you?
Well, first off, I'm gonna take them fly fishing, um, because that to me is where you can get most connected to the earth. Is
Mm,
on that for me, when you look at mountains and the Russian River, there's so many things metaphorically and just
mm,
physically that you can learn from that area. But I would want that alien to see how connected as humans we are to our home.
Yeah.
and that we are all connected. It's kind of tough telling my 3-year-old son he loves bugs and everything else, but it's tough telling him that we all came from the same place.
Yeah.
That roly poly or that roach, you know, is
Rolling
somehow
forward, they forgot about them, but yeah.
yeah. Oh, they're available. Yeah. But when when you're talking to a 3-year-old, it's so cool to talk like that because you realize certain things, and we really are all of our energies are connected, and I truly believe that, and I think that the world would be a better place if we acted that way. So yeah, that's what I would want that alien to know.
I love that. Yes, and I agree with you. We all are connected through various energy. Rich, this has been awesome. I can't wait to have dinner later this evening.
Yeah, likewise, likewise.
Thank you so much for saying yes to being on the podcast.
Oh, it's been
Where
great.
can
Thanks for having
people
me.
Of course, yeah, we'll probably have to get you in for another episode. And one day when I have my own studio and my and actual lounge, since you're here in Austin, we can do it
Oh
together.
yeah,
Yeah,
coming. I'm there. I'm
great.
there.
Awesome. Where can people reach you if they wanna reach out and learn more about your speaking, just connect with you?
Yeah,
Where's that?
richingham.com. That's it. You can go there. All my social media handles or icons are there. And so yeah, check it out and hope to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you, Rich. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you this evening.
All right, Sarah. Thank you.
For everyone else who's watching, thank you for joining us today live in the lounge. Or if you're watching this recording, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. We'll be back this Friday with Sabrina Thompson. We'll see you soon.